Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Hello, you made it to the Eugene Cannabis TV show. We've got a special guest tonight. Paul McClean is back and wants to retell his story of his incident with the Springfield police and the court system over in the city of Springfield. So thanks, Paul, for coming in.
Yeah, well, as you guys know, on February 11th of 2010, I went to the Springfield courthouse to talk to the judge about some unpaid traffic violations, and it was an open court session. Upon entering the courtroom, I was asked by a Springfield police officer if they could search my backpack, and it's standard procedure. They do it to everybody. They searched my bag, and inside of my backpack was another bag, and inside of that bag were 2 glass pipes and about 1/8 of marijuana. The officer found it, and when she located it, I informed her immediately that I was a medical marijuana card holder. She asked me to see the card, which I produced for her. She called 2 additional officers. One of them happened to be a Sergeant Rapay of the Springfield Police Department. When they came, Sergeant Rapay called and confirmed my status as a medical marijuana patient, and I started to go into the courtroom, and the sergeant informed me that I had to leave the building with my marijuana and come back without it. I complied with his directives and went and secured my medicine in a location. And as I was coming back, which was a time span of maybe 4 to 5 minutes, I was stopped by a marked patrol car. And this was a 4th officer who I hadn't seen earlier in the building. He started going through my backpack, and at that time, Sergeant Rapay pulled up in another vehicle and made me unbutton my pants to show him that I didn't have my lawfully prescribed medication. And I was given a ticket, and a senator named Floyd Przansky wrote a letter to Judge Strickland, and the ticket was dismissed and dropped. So the charges were dropped, and ultimately I didn't have to pay for possession of less than an ounce of marijuana because I'm a medical marijuana card holder who should have never been ticketed in the first place. On the 22nd of January, with the help of DanK here, I plan on doing a march in the City of Springfield's police station, and the purpose of the march is to make the public aware of exactly what the police did to me that day, which was violate my rights, searching my pants for lawfully prescribed medication that I got approval from a doctor, and the voters voted over 13 years ago for medical marijuana. I have a sciatic nerve leg in my right leg, which I sustained from a car incident in '08. And it's unfortunate, and it does hurt a lot, and medical marijuana mitigates the pain, and my neurologist suggested it. So I took his professional opinion as a doctor, and it does work when I'm in pain to lessen the pain, and I'll have this pain for the rest of my life. And I was basically harassed and targeted because maybe I'm black, or maybe they just didn't like the fact that I had marijuana in their building, but it doesn't matter if you're male or female. The point is that medical marijuana patients are patients, and the police need to stop arresting and harassing us. So January 22nd at 12 noon, I'm doing a peaceful protest, and like I said, DanK is going to help me, and I'll have a couple other friends and supporters. If anybody out there would like to come and join us, please feel free, because it affects every medical marijuana patient in the state of Oregon.
That's right. So at high noon on January 22nd, we'll be in front of the Springfield Justice Center? Springfield Justice Center.
Springfield Justice Center.
Which is an oxymoron to me, because I used to live in Springfield, and believe me, justice and Springfield are not 2 words that go together. So that's an oxymoron. That's the best one, one of the better ones I've heard of. So
no doubt.
We will definitely be there, and we need your support. This is definitely a court support type of a situation where we need the numbers. We need people to stand up and let everybody else know that this is unacceptable. Another incident has come up that we'll be talking about on the show at another date that's involved the Springfield Police Department having a problem with a medical marijuana patient again. So Springfield seems to have a problem with medical marijuana, so it's going to be an interesting time. And so I said definitely appreciate your all the support we can get.
Oh, and by the way, since the incidents occurred, I've spoken to a sergeant. I can't remember his name, but now I guess the policy is that if you're a medical marijuana patient and you have to go to court in Springfield, you are allowed to carry your lawfully prescribed medication with no fear of arrest or prosecution, but you're not allowed to go to the courthouse and smoke a joint or a bowl of weed in front of the building and then go inside. It's still illegal to consume marijuana in public places, but you can possess it anywhere you happen to be as long as you carry your card on you.
Well, that's good. No, that's at least, yeah, that's a step in the right direction.
That includes courthouses.
That's true, and the law does read that that you have to medicate out of the public view, so that's definitely correct in accordance to the law. So yeah, that's interesting. You know, it's too bad that a person has to go through this. Supposedly, the voters of the state of Oregon voted this to be a lawful medicine. And yet, what other medicine do people get harassed for? How many?
Exactly.
What other medicine does people get hassled for going into a courthouse?
In the exact reading of the law, when the act was introduced, the Medical Marijuana Act, it said that medical marijuana should be treated like other medicines, which would place it in the same family as like Percocet, Vicodin, Ritalin, heart monitor medication. It's medication that is designed to alleviate pain for patients, and that's exactly what it is. And people have been fed lies for the last 50, 60 years prior to, so 60 years ago, everybody had a different opinion of pot than most people have today, because we have new information and new research that we didn't have back in the day.
Definitely.
So now we're more aware.
Yes, and people that don't support it say that it's anecdotal evidence, which means, to me, it's like a nice way of saying that it could be all in your head. And I always say, well, I like to see the medical patients that I know. You tell them that you better stand back because they're going to get, you know.
Yeah, like when I was a child, I was, told and taught that one joint was equivalent to a pack of cigarettes as far as the damage that it did to your lungs and the buildup. Well, I'm 41 now, and I now know that marijuana does not cause cancer. As a matter of fact, marijuana has cancer-causing properties, and marijuana also acts as a bronchulator.
You said cancer-causing. Cannabis, it's not cancer-cancing, it's cancer-fighting.
Yeah, okay, excuse me. Not cancer-causing.
Correct.
I mean, it fights cancer.
Exactly, right.
So it doesn't cause cancer like I was told, that one joint would cause as much cancer as one pack of cigarettes, and that was incorrect information.
Yeah, there's, medical marijuana is full of things that are just the opposite way a person would think it is. For instance, people actually smoke marijuana to treat their asthma.
That's why I said marijuana is also a bronchodilator.
So,
like my girlfriend always says, why do you cough? Well, it opens up your airways. That's why you're coughing.
When I first got on the internet, I read a letter from a guy back east that said that he, as a child, lived in New York City, and he had asthma, and he went. His dad took him to an old Finnish doctor, and this Finnish doctor put some herb in a tin and put a cloth over his head and burnt the herb, and the herb. And he remembers that as soon as he smelled that smell, and it immediately cleared his lungs. And he said he was amazed. And yet he said he never smelled that smell again until many, many years later. He's walking down the hall of his house and smelled that smell coming out of his son's bedroom.
Well, there's also a lot of edibles. A lot of people do edibles with marijuana, and they make tinctures. So a lot of people, some people don't like to smoke it, but they still need the therapeutic effect.
And there's also vaporizing.
Yes.
There's the vaporizing, which that way you're not smoking, you're not getting the carcinogens. It's just strictly a vapor, a much healthier way to utilize it. The only thing always bothered me about vaporizing is you still have in your medicine, there's still got to be some good stuff left in that didn't get extracted. But now, since I found it, what they do is then you use what you left over is used for cooking.
Yes, you do. I've heard people use the vaporized marijuana
Yep.
to make tinctures,
Yep.
to make butter, still. So
And
there's still properties
Yep.
in
And
the
it's
marijuana.
actually, for cooking, it's even better because it kind of gives it that toasty flavor, and so that you can actually use it in cooking, and it doesn't, you don't have
Wow,
that
I
marijuana
didn't think
taste too
about
bad.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know, when you make marijuana cookies and whatnot, do you know how to mask the smell and the taste? You, instead of using
Chocolate.
imitation
Chocolate.
vanilla, you use 100% real vanilla,
Oh, okay.
not imitation.
Right.
And you won't smell it or taste it, but you still get the effect.
Okay.
And back in the days before they had medical marijuana, people that did that illegally would put the vanilla in there so they can get past airport security. But now, if you're a medical marijuana patient, you can
Right.
have edibles.
Sure.
And you don't have to hide it. But some people still don't like the smell, and the vanilla masks the smell.
That'd be the way to go anyway, because you're going natural. So go with real. It's not that much more expensive. I bought it before, and you look at the prices, imitation and the real stuff.
Oh yeah.
Why pay?
It's what,
Why not pay a little extra and get
like
the real
30
stuff?
cents
You know?
more for
Yeah,
real stuff
yeah,
versus
yeah.
fake?
You bet. Yeah, vanilla's incredible. And by the way, you're going to make, you ever make applesauce? Put vanilla in applesauce too.
I've never
I'm
tried
telling
that.
you what, it is good. It gives that just a little creaminess. Oh, it's really good. So anyway, that's on January 22nd at high noon. If you need information on that, you can contact us through our email addresses. You'll come up here. DanK Bagman at EugeneCannabisTV.org is one of the addresses.
Or you can call my phone, 541-606-0784, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or tell you guys where the event is. But I definitely would appreciate any support. So once again, my number is 541-606-0784, and anybody can call as long as you're being positive and you want to support.
So yeah, and real quick, on January 15th, we're having a fundraiser for the community, the cannabis community, law reform community. So that's going to be at the Voter Power Office, 687 River Avenue. And that's on the 15th. It'll start at 8 o'clock. So that's a fundraiser to go to. And then again, don't forget, January 22nd, high noon, in front of the Springfield Justice Center, and come down and support Paul McClean and his fight for justice and right to use your medicine and not be harassed for it. So,
no doubt.
Well, thanks for coming in, Paul. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me,
You
Dan.
betcha, and we'll definitely be
can
there.
I show them my pants again?
No, you're all right. No, So, okay, well, we're going to wrap it up, and we'll be out of here, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming by.
Are you tired of following all the rules? Ready to let loose? Have a little fun? Sounds like you need to. Get high. And with Narcomex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, you can. Narcomex values your business. That's why we're your #1 supplier of drugs, and you're our #1 consumer. These billions can't be wrong. We work hard for your business and have killed not 1, not 2, but 3 Mexican police and 2 journalists just to keep you high with that very joint. Why, our commitment to keeping you supplied has killed over 17,000 people right next door. Traffickers, soldiers, journalists, prosecutors, you name it. We're that passionate about your business. We've even begun to destroy some of your favorite tropical beach destinations. Because if you smoke enough at home, you don't even need a beach. But don't legalize it or grow it at home. Let us do the work for you. Sure, consumers boycotted evil companies, but there's no need to boycott Narcomex Incorporated, your direct-to-consumer drug trafficking solution, also offering heroin, meth, and cocaine. Narcomex Incorporated. Live a little, and forget others won't.
This special SalemNews.com report is brought to you by the THC Foundation, serving the cannabis community since 1999.
Welcome to another edition in our ongoing series on medical marijuana with Dr. Phil Leveque. This looks to be our last edition of the year 2010, so we're going to do a little look back and talk about the things that happened in 2010 briefly, and what Dr. Leveque's perspective on those things was. Hello, Dr. Leveque.
That's fine. Let's go for it.
Okay, well, we've talked a lot about the legalization of medical marijuana and of marijuana in general. Proposition 19 in California really changed the way a lot of Americans, not just Californians, were looking at the entire subject. So why don't you just tell us what you think Proposition 19 did or maybe didn't do for the entire advocacy?
Well, apparently Proposition 19 lowered any kind of a marijuana offense to about the lowest legal something or other, whatever in the heck it was. And if I understand right, that we'll call him a marijuana criminal, for lack of a better term, a marijuana criminal cannot ask for a jury trial. Oh. And I think that was probably stands well taken by whatever Schwarzenegger had to do about it. It's kind of hard to say, but I think the opposition will consider, we're going to squash these marijuana people and so forth. It isn't going to squash them, not at all. And of course, at the same time, Oregon had Measure 74, which was to establish dispensaries. And what I think is the crazy thing about it is, right now in Oregon we have 40,000 people who either have medical cards or caregiver cards. And I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the caregivers are users too, but that's just I'm just guessing at that. But at any rate, the 40,000 people have their own established business or program or whatever you want to call it with caregivers, growers, and also the patients and so forth. And from the start of the program in Oregon, one of the biggest problems for, well, maybe I should say the only problem for people who did have the permits or the cards was, where can I get my medicine? And the whole thing it is that I have said many, many times that Mexican marijuana controls the marijuana business in the United States, I guess. And within the past couple of months, they confiscated 10 tons of marijuana at the border. That was Mexican marijuana. So does anybody think that the Mexican mafia is not involved in this somehow? And even the whatever they call the border, what do they call the border patrol or the border guards or whatever they are? They say, we think that we may be stopping 50% of the marijuana that's coming in. So if they stop 10 tons of it, they guess that 10 tons got through somehow. And that, I think that's a lot of grass. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of bales of hay.
That's a lot of bales of hay. Well, with those two things, I think it's still very unfortunate that some people who probably desperately need marijuana as medicine cannot get it easily. And just like I say, they rely on the black of the blackest market to get their medicine, and that is not right. I have said in many articles that I've written about this subject that the best way to do is to legalize marijuana, and the problem will take care of itself. But what's this guy, Gil Karlowoski or some such a name? Yes. He says there was an alarming increase in the 8th graders who were smoking marijuana, and also the 9th and 10th graders. Well, the whole thing it is that Karlowoski or whatever his name is seems to think that making the laws more strict and also telling people that it's not only it's not medicine and it's harmful, and it is medicine, and it's been used for medicine in the United States since about 1800 or something like that. And before 1900, it was the most widely used medicine in the United States.
Well, it would be appropriate for people that have a legal permit to have medical marijuana and to use medical marijuana to be able to have access to it without feeling are being tempted to break the law. And that's what Measure 74 was trying to do, is give them an option if they aren't able to grow themselves, if they didn't have a good network of other caregivers and growers. And so I think that this is going to come up again in 2 years. What do you think?
I'm certain of that, but what I thought was the really strangest thing of it is that I estimate that probably about 8,000 people of the 40,000 were the ones who were having difficulty getting medicine. But the other 32,000, if I understand the law correctly, if you have your own supplier by whatever means, you can continue to use that. Mm-hmm. But if you buy it from a dispensary, there's a 10% tax. Now, it doesn't take much brains to figure out, should I pay the 10% tax or should I not? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's where it leaves it up to. Really, it would have really helped the people primarily that had absolutely no access otherwise.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
And so, but Arizona did have a good year, and they were able to pass. Was it Proposition 203? I think.
Well, I don't remember what the name of it is, but I have read about it, and it seems to me it's about the most stringent law, which really puts the medical marijuana users almost as criminals, for goodness sakes. I mean, and of course, the whole thing is that what I have said many times is that whatever state it is, the medical marijuana laws that they do have, there are probably many people who are breaking the law accidentally or even on purpose, just because they're trying to make it as difficult as possible. So I have a feeling that anybody who touches marijuana in any manner, shape, or form is breaking some law. And I've heard that whether it's Oregon Chiefs of a Police Association or whether this is beyond the state, probably each state has their own. They say, now in Oregon there's 40,000 people we can't arrest. Well, this is pretty sad. These people have nothing to do now.
Well, they'll think of something to do, I'm sure, as far as finding someone to arrest goes. But LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, is another group that has been very outward and forthright about what they believe is the right thing to do, which is, of course, to end all prohibition.
Well, LEAP is a bunch of former police, probably active policemen too. Because now some of the situations in Portland here, this lady was supposed to be selling marijuana. I think her daughter and maybe the lady herself both had permits, and they raided her house, and she was wheelchair bound. And so they took her wheelchair because she obviously bought it with the money that she was making for stuff. I mean, if you don't have any other income, so if your income is only from selling marijuana to somebody, well, obviously somebody would consider, well, the only way that she could have a wheelchair is to buy it with marijuana money, which is just totally absurd. So.
Which is just about as rational as most of these stories that we hear about situations like this.
Yeah.
You know, so we made a lot of ground this year. I think most people would consider, even though there were losses as far as cannabis is concerned, it was still a big win as far as education is concerned and enlightenment.
I think the best article in that regard was in Time magazine, with the front page of the magazine with a great big marijuana cigar is what it amounted to.
It was a big joint on the cover.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know what the distribution of the Time magazine is, but it must be several million people. And when a lot of people say, well, what in the world is what is Time magazine advertising here? But
right.
but the more education, and it was an excellent article. And November 22, Newsweek had a article also, which happened to be about PTSD and TBI. But marijuana works excellently for PTSD and probably TBI also. There's no reason why it should not. Mm-hmm. And so I had about 1,000 veterans from World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Gulf War. So 1,000 veteran patients, and I knew there's a lot more veterans waiting in the wings to get into this program. There just are, because they know what works, and if they've got some kind of a job or something else like that, they're afraid to use it. But to forbid somebody to use medicine that works, and of course my feeling as a marijuana doctor and a pharmacologist, if the patient says marijuana works, it must work. Why would they? They have to pay about $300 for a permit to use it. So no other medicine do you have to pay $300 to use the medicine.
So it's kind of one step at a time. In 2012, we're going to have the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act come up, and that should be real interesting. So you guys keep on top of this with us. And if you have any questions for Dr. Leveque, please email them here to salemnews.com at newsroom@salem-news.com. Do you have any final comments on 2010?
Yes, I understand that there's a big convention in Las Vegas or Reno about the cannabis people that are in the cannabis business, and they say they're going to have about 1,000 booths there. This is great news.
Well, maybe we'll see you there.
And so it goes. And don't smoke in the rain, people.
With Dr. Phil Leveque, I'm Bonnie King for salemnews.com.
OG Kush. Just started day 45. Let's just look at it. The rest of the garden.